So this is something that's going to go up 10x, 20x from where we are now. Because it's going to go up 10x, 20x, you're going to get a massive amount of volatility because it's growing at this super linear way. Yeah, but I mean, we could go well above the trend line, right? We could go 2 times. There's twice we've gone 2x the trend line. You know, you could go up conceivably to 500,000, then drop to 125,000. It's probably the single biggest wealth creation event for people, especially your age, is there's going to be one decision.
The highly anticipated Bitcoin halving is less than a week away.
Now we're just about a week away from the Bitcoin halving event.
Bitcoin's price is currently around 65,000 USD per coin, down almost 10,000 from the new all-time high.
Bitcoin drifting lower today after a steep weekend sell-off following Iran's attack against Israel.
Bitcoin prices tumbled over the weekend after Iran's missile attack on Israel.
With the halving only days away, the recent drop in price is a shock and has become a source of concern for some investors. Today, Fred Kreuger encourages investors not to panic. Fred is not really popular, but he's well known in Bitcoin circles. Fred has a PhD in mathematics from Stanford and more than 10 successful venture capital exits. In short, Fred is extremely rich and extremely experienced in the world of technological adoption. Today, he explains why this crash and any others that follow are just bumps in the road of Bitcoin's journey to becoming the de facto asset class. He discusses the adoption trend and stresses why, now more than ever, it is crucial for those looking to retire off Bitcoin to get in. He advises that interested investors get off the sidelines as quickly as possible, as a deadline of sorts is approaching. Let's jump in to hear it all.
I think if you think of this thing as payment, as a payment technology, you're missing it, right? You will miss it. You will miss what it is. Because you're like, okay, well, Venmo does really well. Venmo does pretty good. It works. PayPal works. Maybe stablecoins are better than using Bitcoin because stablecoins is the dollar. If you're in Venezuela, the dollar seems pretty good. I think that the problem is, I think payment tech, you miss it. And I think the hard thing is realizing that it actually is a new form of money. It's a new unit of account. And that's really the hard part because it's so very counterintuitive that why do we need a new unit of account? It's not clear, like living in America in particular, or Netherlands. Why do I need to start going from the euro to this weird unit of account called Bitcoin? You know, why? I think there's a couple things that Bitcoin does much better than regular money. And the first thing I think it does is it allows your money to be held in custody by yourself and moved wherever you want. And if you have euros and you move to America, your euros are basically useless. You know, we do not accept the euro over here. My dollars in Netherlands are pretty useless. But Bitcoin is this unit where I can hold my Bitcoin in a wallet and I can take that wallet anywhere I want in the world. And that's a fundamentally new thing. I think that's actually the killer app of Bitcoin, is that it's sort of money that you can hold and you can move around the world. That's the first thing. And nothing has this because fiat really has to be stored in a bank account. Bitcoin can be stored just in a wallet. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, I can send Bitcoin anywhere to anybody, anywhere in the world without an intermediary either, right? So I don't need a checkbook to send it. I don't need a wire to send it. I can send it to anybody in the world. And again, that's a really new thing, right? Now, other cryptocurrencies have that capability as they have the capability of the wallet, right? But I would think those two things are the things that are the biggest capabilities of crypto in general. And then the third thing is, you know, this sort of finite supply. You know, it cannot be debased. And I think between those things, I think you have something that is extremely powerful. It's extremely powerful for people to keep their money out of the reach of the government. That I think is the biggest, that's the core driver of Bitcoin's growth. Number one driver is I want to take my money and I want to move it outside of the banking system. I want to move it outside of the government system.
Fred has reiterated time and time again that he does not consider himself a Bitcoin maximalist. Just as he said now, he's convinced in the overall utility of cryptocurrency, but he's still convinced that Bitcoin stands heads and shoulders above all others. Unlike most other cryptocurrency, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. And Fred believes it is this feature that sets it apart from the rest. He believes this same feature is what will allow Bitcoin to replace global fiat and become a global currency. Sit back as we bring you more clips from the interview.
It's probably ultimately going to be an S-curve, right? But we're still in the very early phases. So I would say, roughly speaking, of kind of like, how close are we to the end? 1%?
Yeah, we are at 1%, you mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe not even 1%, right? When
So
you look
is it
at
too early to talk about S-curve adoption then?
a friend of mine, Stephen Perrinode, he's an astrophysicist, and he's actually even modeled like S-curves that actually look like power laws in the very early phase. They're identical to power laws, and then they turn into S-curves. So you can model these things with an S-curve, but realistically, we're probably 10 years away from the S-curve stuff even starting to become an S. You know, it looks like that, and then it sort of has an inflection point and bends. But we're not even we're still in the very early phases. So we're 1% of the way in. I mean, realistically. Here's the thing. If you're looking at an asset that is sort of growing at some linear rate, and it's oscillating around this linear rate, I would say, yeah, it's way too volatile. Like, why would I want an asset if I said you can either invest in something that's going to go up 10% a year, almost guaranteed, or you can get an asset that's going to grow 40% a year, plus or minus 40%. Now you're like, well, I'll take the 10%. I'll take the 10% for sure, right? Like my house on the canals in Netherlands, that thing's probably going to grow up 10% a year. Maybe 7%. That sounds a lot safer than something that's might go down 40%. But that's not the correct way of looking at it. It's actually an exponential thing. So because it's exponential, not linear, it's not just volatility around a linear path. It's volatility around an exponential path. This thing's going to be the next Microsoft, right? I'm buying Microsoft in 1986. Great. I don't care what the volatility is if I buy Microsoft at around 86. You know, Microsoft went up 3,000 times from 1986 till now. So Bitcoin is on a very high growth trajectory. And it's not just a linear growth. It's going to grow a lot, compounded really high. So this is something that's going to go up 10x, 20x from where we are now. Because it's going to go up 10x, 20x, you're going to get a massive amount of volatility. Because it's growing at this super linear way. Not just even x squared, it's growing at x to the power 6. So if you see something that's growing at x to the power 6, you absolutely should own that thing. You just have to get it in your head. This thing's growing at x to the power 6. Okay, I'm going to own that thing.
Fred has likened buying Bitcoin now to owning Microsoft shares in 1986. For reference, Microsoft has appreciated over 700,000% from its price in 1986. Such a movement in Bitcoin would be monumental. And that's the mindset with which Fred is approaching Bitcoin. He ends the interview with a parting shot, particularly aimed at younger investors looking to get ahead. Let's head back in.
If we're right, if we Bitcoiners are right, I think we are. If this is going to become the future world money, then if you don't get involved at year 15 of the future of world money, you kind of miss pretty much the biggest thing that's going to change the world economy going forward. I don't see anything that's going to be bigger than that, because if the entire money supply changes to a world where we're running Bitcoin, and if that happens within the next, say, 20 years, the difference between you not getting involved now and getting involved 20 years from now, it's going to be completely night or day as to kind of whether you retire. You still may retire, but it's an amazing opportunity.
I wanted to say not as advertised.
You can still survive. I think you'll do fine, but it's probably the single biggest wealth creation event for people, especially your age, is there's going to be one decision. Did they get orange pilled or not?
Many experts are certain the Fed won't cut interest rates, however. In a tweet on social media platform X, Fred Kreuger said, "I heard that credit card rates were 24% from at Profstonge. I checked. He was low. It's actually 28%. The average American is so deep in trouble, they are going to have to lower interest rates to 0 after the election, or there will be a revolution." This tweet highlights the dire state of the fiat money system and suggests that it is due for an influx of liquidity to prevent another 2008 moment.
Down 1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
This situation is the same all over the world. and it has always led to a massive surge in crypto prices. It has never been more important to take Fred's advice. Buying now could mean the difference between retiring forever and having to work. What do you think about Fred's bullishness and insight? To see the latest in crypto news, watch this video here.